I'm Becher Townshend, and thanks for joining the FontCast, Tasmania's top source for political news and analysis. And welcome to what will no doubt go down in the annals of history as the beginning of Tasmania's century-long golden age.
Yeah.
Where the streets will be paved with gold, patchouli flowers will festoon every corner, and caviar will be the food of the paupers, not just the kings.
What actually is patchouli flower?
I'm not particularly
I think it's really
attracted to
nice
that one.
smelling flower, I think, yeah.
I'd prefer some nice. I'd prefer some nice daffodils or something. But anyhow, okay, I might be a little bit sarcastic, but if some are to be believed, our economic salvation is now at hand with the confirmation that Labor will back the Macquarie Point Stadium, meaning
Multi-purpose centre
function centre.
Precinct, that's it, yep.
Meaning it is, by our assessment, set to pass Parliament.
Heard here first.
You did. Fact. So today, as you'd expect, we're going to have another look at the stadium issue. Why did Labor back it? And will it and the AFL team it promises to deliver be the economic nirvana that's been promised?
And Beach, I hear you've got a big scoop coming up on that one.
Well, I think it's a notable big one for what it's worth.
Notable big one.
Notable
Okay.
big one. Anyhow,
Hang on for that.
Yep, hang on to your hats. Anyhow, we're also going to have a bit more of a look at the budget scheduled for early November, and a few other things, including the government's magnanimous decision to reject the 22% pay rise.
How
good of them.
Yes.
Joining me today, my partner in crime, Brad Stansfield.
Hello.
Our new regular co-host, I think I can say that now, Alex AJ Johnston.
Good morning. I've got a little bit more on my plate than I did when we last met. I'm looking forward to your notable big one, Beach. It sounds like like my internet search history. But anyway, I can't wait to find out what that is.
Oh yes, it'll be an interesting one. And I'm pleased to say, backed by popular demand, the Mercury's chief political reporter, David Killick.
Up early on my day off too.
You're a good man.
That's my dedication.
Yeah, that is your dedication
to my
job.
craft.
Let's get straight into it, Brad. The stadium.
The stadium. Well, they say in politics, they say a couple of things. Firstly, political pundits are never wrong. They're always right.
Yes.
Rule number one.
Yep.
And the second rule number one is if you hang around in politics long enough, particularly in Tasmanian politics, you will eventually be proven right. So I did scour the back episodes of the FontCast and did find the FontCast post the 2024 election. So that's the one before the one we just had, after the one we had in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's confusing. But at that point, and people would recall that was the first election that the stadium survived. I did declare at that point that I thought that the stadium would be built after surviving that election, and I think we have said today with absolute certainty that it will pass the Parliament. Yeah. Presumably that means it will be built, given Labor's capitulation on the issue, which I think we might come to a bit later. But look, perhaps just for those doubters, I know there's still a few people out there, particularly some in the ABC holding on to hope that maybe it won't pass the upper house. We do have the updated FontCast Stadium scoreboard.
It hasn't been updated yet.
Well, it's about to be updated. We've got a list of names there, and Alex is going to do the Adriana Xenides or whatever it is, and put some Y's or N's beside those names.
The stadium scoreboard would be the whiteboard of truth, rebranded as the FontCast Stadium scoreboard. That's how nimble we are here at Font.
It looks new.
Yeah,
it's been cleaned.
Yeah, it's been cleaned.
All right. So when are we going to do that later?
Let's do it right now.
Let's do it.
Would you like to buy a vowel?
Now, first thing, is there a pen that you can use? Yes, there is. Okay.
All right.
Beach, do you want to go through the call the card?
Okay, I'll go through the call.
In alphabetical order.
Okay, so we start with Rosemary Armitage, who has always been a strong no to the stadium.
So I'll put her in the no column. Sorry, I'm just making sure you can hear me and see me. So I'll take my headphones off.
Okay. Thank you for that, Adriana. Nick Duigan, of course, member of the Liberal team, so he's a yes. Luke Edmonds is very much a yes. Craig Farrell is Labor supporter, so he's arguably a yes, even though he said he'll vote no should it be locked?
Can we just put that in brackets, AJ? Only votes
I think that's the convention.
Yes.
I've had a couple of people explain to me that if the convention in the Legco is if the vote is tied, the motion is defeated because you've failed to convince the House, I think is the...
And Craig, I think, by his own confession, has said he would follow that convention.
Right.
So
Okay.
anyway.
Do we need AJ to just sort of adjust his weather stance a little?
If you turn side on, he'll probably be invisible.
Yeah, well, you got the biggest boy on the panel to do this.
Here we go. Let's just move. There you go.
All right, we'll just put an asterisk. That's going to be an X.
I think he had an X in brackets, doesn't he?
Yeah, an X in brackets.
We'll leave it blank.
Okay. Ruth Forrest is a no.
Particularly after last night's speech.
Well, we'll come back to that.
Yeah, okay.
I had her as a maybe, but for the sake of the argument.
Okay.
There's no maybes on this
Mike
one.
Gaffney is a no. Harris, I think, is a yes.
Yes.
See, this is an interesting one because Dean Harris wanted to have a look at the POS. He was like, I need to see the POS.
Yep.
So that happened, but the POS was damning of the stadium. So does he put weight in the POS and vote no, or is he just satisfied that it's gone through the rigorous process? What makes you think he's going to say yes?
It's just my inclination.
Feeling we were trying to get hold of him over the weekend, and unfortunately he did return my calls.
Well,
but
the fact
would have loved to have spoken to him.
Well, I think there are many people who would have loved to have spoken to him. So,
And let's not forget the Harris family, the dynasty, I think you can call it our House dynasty now, has a strong tradition, sporting tradition, if nothing else.
Yep.
I think Dean himself is quite a good cricketer.
yeah. Well, his dad was a umpire in the SFL for many years.
AJ's jumped ahead here.
All right,
Well,
AJ.
they're
So
boring, aren't they?
okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Speak for yourself. Hiskett,
Hiskett,
yes. Lovell, yes. O'Connor, no. Palmer, yes. Rattray was a no, but now as leader for government,
No, she's always been a
She
yes.
was never a no.
She's
She
always
was a
been a
yes.
yes. She's
She was
always
very
been in
pro-stadium.
favour of the
she's always
stadium.
been pro-stadium. Well, forgive me, Tanya. I've got that
the
wrong.
leader of government business has not changed that. I was at a footy
Oh,
function
no,
with her,
I do
and
stand-
she was pro-stadium.
I do stand corrected. You are dead right. Sorry. So that's yes. And then Beck Thomas, we think, is a yes.
Well, it just depends how many basketball stadiums can be promised and built in the northern suburbs
How
between
many-
now
how
and the
many-
vote.
I spoke
but-
to her
how
on
many can you-
Thursday or Friday, and I would colour her as unconvinced. I don't think she's yet to be convinced.
Okay,
but she's
so-
certainly.
So I suppose, all right, well, Vincent, definitely a yes.
No, can we? Thomas is a yes. No.
Yeah, and let's put Thomas as a yes, and then Webb, you're a psychic, as a no. Look, I suppose the point, perhaps with Dean Harris and perhaps with Beck Thomas, and we may be proven wrong, but I know, but the situation is this, is with Labor backing in the stadium, right, it is very unlikely that a Beck Thomas or a Dean Harris is going to want to be seen as the person who knocked over the stadium.
person.
The singular person who killed it.
and
So-
I think the analysis that we had as of the weekend was that the thing needs 8 votes. At present, I think you can pretty safely count on 6.
How many did you get there?
And
AJ?
it needs 2 votes from 4 who we regarded as undecided, and that was
Well, we've got
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
9.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are right about... I don't know about Dean Harris. I haven't spoken to him recently, so I don't know.
Well-
Beck Thomas has played it very safely. I heard her on SEN radio the other day, and she actually pushed back. They were obviously very pro-stadium on that channel, but she pushed back on a couple of things, so I don't think she's entirely made up her mind, but I agree completely. No, don't get me wrong. I agree completely. She would not want to be the deciding vote. And that's you scoffed at me when I said this before, but that is a difficult position to put people in the upper house in. You're not just voting, and we'll have this argument more fully later in the episode, I'm sure, but you're not just voting on one piece of infrastructure. There are flow and effects, which, Brad and I obviously differ on.
Before we get into it, so
economic
can we
phenomena.
just, David, maybe you're the closer one now, can we just, for the purposes of the record, yes, 9, no, there's a space to write the numbers there, David, if you can reach
sorry.
your
Oh,
amount.
sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just
Yes,
I'm
9.
just getting my breath back.
Yeah. No, up here, David.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
total, that's
9
it.
and no
1, 2,
5. I think we've got there.
5. 9 and 5 would be 14. Plus one who doesn't vote,
the
which is
president
15.
doesn't vote.
All right,
Yeah,
so even in the incredibly unlikely event
4 or 5?
that we are wrong, which is obviously highly unlikely, we have one vote to spare on our scorecard here.
All right. My analysis is slightly different. I think it needs to get 2 votes out of 4 who I would regard as undecided. I can't see it not getting 2 out of those 4 votes.
And
so
I think that's
we agree, but for different reasons.
Yeah. I think that's, and I think in its thrust, that's a prognosis. And with 9 votes, that's 2 to play with, arguably.
Yeah.
Well, one. Sorry.
And
sorry, it's one
AJ,
extra.
you agree it will pass? Or you left
Yeah,
with
I
it?
think so. I think I'm not as bullish. I don't know about Dean Harris's vote. I would have had him in the no column, but I don't know that for a fact. But I think, based on the things you've said, I don't think one independent upper house member wants to be the one. There'd be a lot of pressure. I mean, pressure from both sides, mind you, but it's a tricky position to be in.
There's a mood afoot in the Legislative Council at the moment, and no doubt we'll touch on this during the pay debate, but there was a pretty strong mood among the independents who stuck together pretty hard yesterday and expressed a fair bit of disappointment with the government, and so it's not beyond the realms of possibility. I sort of never try and predict too far in advance.
Stuck together over
there's a mood afoot.
22% pay rise.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Beach, keep it moving.
All right. So, well, getting back to the stadium, what's your take on it all, David?
Well, I think it's a testament to the state, or to the difficulty that we have with literacy in this state when the Planning Commission can issue a report and people can read it and can say, this report says the stadium can be built. I must have got a different report. Maybe I read the words, all of the words, sequentially. That to me was a damning report. But if you took, the word "it can" from page 7 and then "be built" from page 26,
and you put them together.
That was clearly the central message the Planning Commission
I've just highlighted
was
these key
going to
points.
convey. I think I said to somebody during the week, you could build an abattoir there or a nuclear power plant. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think that's what, there was. You didn't really have to read between the lines of what the Planning Commission was trying to say. That the numbers for this project, the other issues surrounding this project have not improved. In fact, on the day the report came out, we had was it $290 million? My maths is terrible. So we went from, what we at,
975 to
975 to
1.1 or something.
So all of those calculations, all of those cost-benefit calculations are now worse than they've ever been. So we've got a project here which, on any fair reading, has never had a favourable planning report, which has never had a favourable economic analysis, and which has never had a majority of public sentiment. So it's a really, for me, as a student of politics, is a really interesting outcome that we're steamrolling ahead with this, regardless. So it's going to be an interesting time indeed.
I think any study of Tasmanian history would say that history, as Brad says, in politics, if you say something and it eventually rolls around again, well, in Tasmanian politics, the cargo cult mortality
I was about to say, I've never seen a cargo cult operate in real life before like this.
Well,
I'll be delighted to be wrong if this transforms us.
It says in the run sheet here, your rant comes a little bit later.
I know.
Let's just
this is the warm-up rant.
Let's just give AJ.
AJ, what's your take on it?
Yes, well, the report hasn't changed too many opinions, has it? It was damning, and I think that's somewhat predictable because I think when Jeremy Rockcliffe embarked on the POS process, a lot of people said, well, this is where projects go to die. And I think we all know that it's an extremely difficult site to build on, and I think that's been emphasised, obviously, by the TPC's report. And when it first came out, I thought, well, this does make things harder in the upper house, and obviously things have transpired since then, and Labor's position, which we'll come to in a minute, has probably played a hand in how it's going to shake down with the independents as well. One thing, I'll see if I can articulate this well enough. The AFL has hardly said anything about the progress of the stadium. Basically, it's in the deal, it's part of the deal. And I'm sure there's a sentiment that, okay, the noise coming from Tasmania has just been, the people that don't want it, it's a political issue. You get a report like this, I think the AFL has an obligation to now consider what they've asked of Tasmania is very difficult. And it's not just people who are fundamentally against the project who say it's difficult. This is the Planning Commission highlighting just how big of an ask has been put on Tasmania. Now, I'm not saying the AFL should say, well, you don't need to build it, because we'll get to that in a minute. I do believe that the team's success needs a new stadium. But it would be nice if the AFL acknowledged just how difficult a situation the state's been put in by making this part of the deal. Just an acknowledgement, I think, would be nice. So it may get to that stage. You know, if it doesn't get voted on before Christmas, then we've got big problems with the time. We've already got massive problems with the timeline. They're going to try and get it done before Christmas. I'd like your opinion on whether that's possible or not, or whether, you know, there's some mechanism in the upper house that will delay. I don't know. But you get a report like that, I think someone at the top of the AFL has to sort of now acknowledge this is a big ask. And I'm not saying they need to say, oh, go ahead and do it without it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it does to me. I mean, I think the AFL always set the bar too high for Tasmania. I think they almost set the state up to fail. But, so I don't think they're going to acknowledge that. I don't think they're going to acknowledge they got it wrong. I think they're going to push on their view. That's the simple reality.
Yeah, I'm not even saying they should acknowledge they got it wrong. Like, I think it's fair to say, well, we think your team needs new infrastructure, but you've got to look at the debate down here and realise that what you've asked is pretty taxing. And you've had the political support. You've got both major parties saying, yep, we're going to do it. But this report is a reminder that it's not just a political issue, it's a massive logistical issue as well.
Well, you've got that absolute inherent tension. The two biggest issues in Tasmania at the moment are the stadium and the budget crisis, and they seem to be pulling in different ways.
Correct.
We're going to blow a couple of $1 billion on a footy team. Fine, and whether we can afford that or not is a debate that's worth having. We're also sacking, 3,500 public servants. We've got a series of other long-running crises we haven't addressed. So there's echoing what Alex says to a large degree, but these are just pulling in opposite directions, and I'm not sure how folk resolve this.
Everybody knows I've had a very jaded view of the stadium proposal since day one, and I still have great problems with it. I certainly understand from an interest group point of view, from an economic driver, the potential it can be for driving the economy, particularly here in Hobart, for a period of time. I think there's some wonderful opportunities there for Tasmanian businesses in theory. But I mean, the reality is it's going to be constructed by a tier one organisation that's going to be national or international. It's going to be concentrated very much in Hobart, so that means all the work will be here in Hobart. It won't be around the rest of the state. And there was an argument put forward pretty early in the piece, and it's been around for quite a while for those people that opposed the stadium, arguing that, look, the problem is we can't afford our health system, we can't afford these other things, we shouldn't be building this stadium. I've never subscribed to that. I think governments can walk and chew gum. I think they've got many things they've got to do. But what I am now seeing as a result of the budget situation that we're failing, and I know we're going to talk about the budget, non-budget in a few minutes, but the point being this, that what I'm actually now seeing in the community is decisions made by the government to not fund other things at the price of for the argument of the stadium. And that is a very distressing development, because that means we're building this thing at the cost of other things. And those opportunities that we're losing elsewhere are quite distressing. I made the point last podcast about we're gonna take steps against the forest industry, we're going to take steps against the greyhound industry, we're going to take steps against the salmon industry. But don't worry, it's all good. It's great news. We're going to build a stadium, a taxpayer-funded stadium. And so, in other words, we're going to knock back the wealth-generating industries in Tasmania that create jobs, that create wealth, and then we're going to go and we're going to use taxpayers' money to build something. And I just think it's absolute, total and utter madness. And I might make one other point. We have two stadiums in Tasmania at which we play AFL games, and we have played AFL games for a long time. I'm sure we can do something better than this. And Tasmania's success over all these years has been about its uniqueness, right? Look at Mona. Look at all the wonderful things we have. Look at everything we do as a state, but no, we're going to be the same as everybody else because we've got a cultural cringe about the thought that we don't have an AFL team. Just madness.
I'll ask about one thing you said. What evidence do you have that decisions are being made not to go ahead with things because of the stadium?
Well, okay. So the recent decision to close the private mental health clinic in Hobart was because that clinic was unable to renegotiate a contract with the state, okay, I assume to offset its costs. I have no knowledge, I don't work for that organisation, but what I'm saying is it's clear that those kind of decisions are the kind of situations where government's saying, no, we're not going to do this, we can't afford it, but in the meantime we're going to build the stadium. Now, I'm not saying that that's the catalyst, but I'm saying it's a potential example of how these things can...
Public sector wage agreements,
Yeah.
There was a lot of work to be done there, and you can't help but have the suspicion that the government's preoccupied with other things than negotiating a new deal with its workers.
And it's certainly being viewed that way by a lot of people. Every time there's an issue, the stadium's front of mind.
Well, it's hard not to argue with it. Oh, you haven't got a couple of $100,000 for this, but you've got $1 billion for the stadium. I mean, every issue.
The easiest argument to make.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say, and this is not me defending or playing down the massive cost of the stadium, but Tasmania's got a budget crisis with or without the stadium.
Absolutely.
So, I don't think it can be blamed for all of our woes.
No, I'm not saying it can be blamed for all of our woes. What I'm saying is we're at a point where we could be making a decision about this. We should have made a decision about this a number of years ago. We've made a decision that the juggernaut's rolling forward. And I'm, as a critic of it, I'm just one person with a view. But I'm not the government, I'm not the Premier, I'm not the leader of the opposition. I'm just telling you my view and I'm expressing it. That's
when you're struggling to make your mortgage payments, you don't go out and buy a jet ski.
Yeah.
That's the analogy of it is. Even if you can, make a bit of money back giving rides.
All right. Is that... I think you finished reading that scribble. Okay, all right. Just a few points it's in very small print, so I just make sure you got it all out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've written in such a way nobody else can decode it. Just for
like doctor's writing.
Yeah.
Cheaper than therapy.
Yeah.
Just a few points from me. Stadium, schmadium, great, whatever. I mean, my concerns with this project have always been twofold. I mean, the first has been the political problems that I felt it would cause for the government. Now, that has been proven to be true with the passage of events. Two Turkeys left the government and lost the majority over it. Didn't get majority back in 2024 election over it. Arguably would have done better in 2025 without the stadium issue hanging over their head.
I'm not sure about that, Brad.
Well, as I said, arguably.
I could argue the opposite, I reckon.
Yeah, I feel like unsuccessfully. But my point being it's only Labor's complete, and we'll come back together, and utter incompetence on the issue that the Libs are still in government over this issue. That's always been my first concern and my biggest concern. My second concern is, I sort of share your views, Beach. I just don't subscribe to this view that the stadium, the AFL team, is the economic silver bullet that Tasmania needs. This facile, puerile argument that we can't afford not to build it. Of course we can afford not to build it. I mean, I'm old enough to remember exactly the same thing was said about the pulp mill. And yet, here we are today. The sky hasn't fallen in.
Well,
the state still exists.
Very different.
No, the arguments made were exactly the same, which is this is our economic nirvana. We've got to do this if we're going to
despite all the evidence to the contrary
succeed
from
as a state. So that's been let me just finish.
There weren't tribes of kids running around going, I can't wait till I get to see my team run out on the pulp mill.
Anyway, as I was saying, I just never have, and I don't subscribe to that argument. And my final point on this is, two final points, and we'll come to the budget issue. I absolutely share your concerns about how we can afford to pay for it at the time when we're trying to tighten our belts. That you can't, as David said earlier, completely pulling in different directions. And my final point is, I just do not believe this utter bullshit that you cannot renegotiate with the AFL better terms. I mean, we even got you today, Alex, suggesting that maybe your AFL should be a little bit nicer to about us all. I'm astounded that no one in the government, the current Premier, the previous Premier, the current Leader of the Opposition, the previous Leader of the Opposition, the previous Leader of the Opposition have had the gumption, thank you, to stand up to the AFL and say, no, look, this ain't right. We cannot afford this. Let's find a better way forward. And it's like as Nick McKim used to say to Will Hodgman for 4 long years in opposition, pick up the phone. Why has nobody done that? I'm astounded.
So just to be clear, I wasn't sort of advocating for renegotiation, just an acknowledgement that this requirement in the licence has put a lot of pressure on a state in a very difficult financial position. I've tested your theory with a lot of people over the last couple of weeks, Brad, that, if you call their bluff and didn't build a stadium, would you still get the team? Very, very few people agree with you. Now, is that because it's not convenient for them to agree with you because they put all their chips in on the stadium, and if you show one little crack in your facade, then people will, mixing on metaphors, but drive a, car through it. But you talk to the people deeply involved in the team, they fundamentally agree the team does not succeed without the new infrastructure.
But that's not the same argument.
Well, but why would you embark on a process that you know is not going to succeed? Yes, a Tasmanian team could play out of Bellerive and UTAS Stadium for a number of years, but you want to future-proof it so that when the excitement of the new team comes off, you've got the commercial setup so that it survives through good seasons and bad seasons. What you're arguing is, okay, you still get the licence, but you sort of meander along. Is that really a way to do things?
That's what I'm suggesting.
I think any negotiating position we're going to take to renegotiations is undermined a bit by the fact that we offered the stadium well in advance of the deal being signed. I mean, the AFL's going to turn around and go, well, hang on a minute, it's in the deal, it's a condition of the deal, but you guys were offering this in 2022, well before. So what exactly is going on down there?
Yeah.
What's happening in your heads?
Yeah, you put this up front.
We sort of opened with our top bid first, and
and I don't know this for a fact, but I'm sure there are some people who are now wishing it was a commitment to investigate a stadium, feasibility about a new stadium, rather than that we're going to
10-year aspiration.
Than we're going to build it by this date.
Build it around the time.
Yeah, but I mean, it was obviously a rush of blood to the head, and Gillen went, "All right,
I'll have that.
I want it, and I want it built here," and that's what we're all dealing with. The one point I will just make, and Brad talks about the pulp mill and the Cogo cult mentality. Some of us in the room, perhaps just me, can remember a thing called the Gordon below Franklin, which was exactly the same kind of issue where we have all our future economy hangs off this one decision. Anyhow,
comes up twice in this episode. Damn.
All right, okay, right. Let's move on to Labor, right? And let's have a look at why they've backed it in, and was this the right call, David? Why do you think Labor backed it?
Look, I've been watching the Labor Party floundering around in opposition for a decade now, and I've come to the conclusion that they're just not real good at this stuff. And by this stuff, feel free to interject with, politics, strategy. I struggle with a great difficulty because you try to report people's views and things fairly and objectively, and I've really struggled for years to understand exactly what Labor's position on this project has been at any given time. So, I still feel that we're at a point where the policy is to hold the government to account, but to wave the thing through regardless, which to me seems to be a bit of a capitulation of their role as an opposition. I got a text from a fairly senior, Labor person, not currently active, but someone who's been around for a while.
Senior Labor figure.
I'm not going to identify who they were, so I'll keep it nice and broad, but they said, this is the worst decision by the Parliamentary Labor Party since they decided to reverse the decision to save the Franklin River. Lamentable, inept, unconscionable, weak as piss. There was one other line.
Well,
and that's the decision to keep backing the stadium after the TPC?
A pro-government opposition, and I think that, I don't pretend to have a direct line to the mood of the electorate, but I think people are a little bit bewildered whether they're for or against or undecided on the stadium. That we just see, there's a lack of. It's not a lack of backbone, but it's just maybe it is.
What about the argument which I feel Alex was going to make? We'll see. Which is they're doing the right thing for the state.
Well, look, that may be the case, but I mean, you're not the government. This is a government policy. Put some limits around it. Put some. If this thing hits, if the cost of this thing hits $2 billion, we're no longer in. We will approve it conditional on it being a well-ordered, well-organised process. We will, we want the issues that raised by the TPC taken into account. There are ways of being broadly in favour of something without writing a blank cheque for a policy that is not yours and that you've had no say in.
Well,
we elect parliaments to represent our interests, and I feel that this, capitulation on their part, and I understand why taking strong positions hasn't worked out necessarily in the past. And I think the pokey decision of some years ago is etched deep on some psyches. But I look at, the objective facts, and I look at the decisions that are made in response to them, and I really question how Labor goes about coming to these conclusions. And I know the issue of leadership is going to be touched on. I think it goes beyond the leader, because we've had a series of leaders and we've had a series of, these sorts of blunders, in my opinion.
AJ, do you want your face is getting longer and longer as this episode continues, mate?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, I mean, I just don't think there's an easy answer to this. And, the conversation you've just had, Beach, comparing it to the pulp mill, comparing it to,
Gordon below Franklin.
Before my time.
Yep. And there are two pulp mills, by the way.
It sort of ignores that this piece of infrastructure is attached to something that a lot of Tasmanians have wanted for a very, very long time. And I think that's been the big challenge for Labor right from the outset. Yep. And I'm definitely not going to defend the way Labor's handled this. It's been abysmal. They've found a way to win no support from anyone on this issue,
on an issue where maybe 60% of the people are against the, prevailing.
Well,
how can you not capitalise on that politically?
Yeah, well, but that's what I'm saying. Even if I had a time machine, I don't really know what the answer is for Labor. I don't know what I would do if I went back to the start. Do you back in the stadium and have a consistent line, or do you draw a line in the sand and say it's we're against it, but we're going to get a team anyway? Can you win that argument that Brad's talking about, that you could renegotiate the deal? Sometimes you guys make it sound easy. I just don't think it has been easy at any stage, because it's been tied to the team. Look, I don't think Labor had much to gain from changing its position again, because it's flip-flopped so much. I understand there was an option 2 after the TPC. That's your out if you want it.
Yep.
I just don't think you get much credit. I mean, a few people begrudgingly say, Labor can read the report and sniff the breeze, but I just don't think it helps their political stocks. And I think you underestimate how much the stadium issue hurt them at the last election. They were absolutely...
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
That you underestimated, or that it hurt them?
It hurt them greatly because they backed in the government's position on it.
No, it hurt
Madness.
them. It hurt them because they went to an early election, and all of those people that wanted the stadium now saw them as the enemy to the stadium and just fell back in line with the Liberals and David O'Byrne. And I just think that's so fresh in Josh.
This was a new argument. You're now saying the Libs won the election because of the stadium.
I'm saying
this is new.
No, I think the facts are there. The Liberals had no momentum until Labor breathed life into them by going to an early election, handed them a election strategy, which was Labor's brought on this unwanted election, and
how many
all of
media
those,
events did the Libs do in the campaign about the stadium?
Well, they didn't, but they didn't need to because you had this. No, Brad, don't scoff. You had this army of people, 25,000 people in a Facebook group, and I read every post. They went from being pro Luke Edmonds in the upper house election, cheering on anyone who supported the stadium, to telling people to put up signs for Liberals all through the state campaign. It did make a difference, and if you don't think it did, then you're not paying attention to what people are saying. It made a huge difference. The stadium helped the Liberals versus Labor. Now, I'm not saying it's popular, not saying it didn't hurt them in other ways, but in the head-to-head versus Labor, the stadium helped the Liberals at the last election.
Well, if you wanted the stadium, then it was the deciding issue for your vote. You voted Liberal. You didn't vote for the Liberal light position, which Labor had.
Yep.
And if you didn't want the stadium, you didn't
I'm
vote.
just not sure what you're arguing. You're arguing they should have been against it or opposed to it.
Well, I'm saying I don't know. If I had a time machine, I actually don't know what to do. Like it's you often say things are black and white. This is not black and white. Unless you could have successfully argued that you could get the team without the stadium, against the AFL saying no, that's not the case, against the team saying no, that's not the case, against the 18 clubs saying no, that's not the case. Unless you can do that, then I don't know how you navigate this issue.
But aren't there people in the upper house who throughout this have maintained a relatively coherent position, who've said, in principle, I would support this. I need to be convinced, I need to see the evidence, and once I see that, I will follow through. I think there was a policy way through this where you could offer support, but you could make the government do some work to put together a better proposal.
Well, I think that's what Labor tried.
However you measure that.
I think that's what Labor tried under Rebecca White. It was, we'll renegotiate the deal, and it didn't work because, as you said, it got them stuck in no man's land. You had to go one way or another, I think.
Yes. Anyway, we could go all day.
We could.
Look, I just on Labor, and the reason I sometimes sound like I say it's easy, it's black and white, because I've been there, I've done that, I know how it works, and I recall vividly what happened with the pulp mill. I wasn't working for Marine Heating at the time, but I was working for Erica Betts at the time, and I was very close to what happened. And what happened was the Liberal Party under Marine Heating basically got bullied by John Gay into backing the pulp mill. Bullied by Paul Lennon and John Gay into backing the pulp mill, to their detriment for the next 8 years. Marine Heating, Reen who? Oh, no, sorry, Reen, but that's what happened. And then I think what's happened here is exactly the same. The Labor Party under successive leaders has been bullied by the government and bullied by the AFL into backing the stadium. Now, when you're in opposition, you don't have many friends. So, when someone important comes and sits down at your coffee table, like what apparently happened with Mr. Winter at your house, or when you get a phone call from Mr. Gay or invite you to come up to his house or whatever, those sorts of things actually can be very, very influential on oppositions. And I just think that they have failed to effectively stand up for their own interests rather than just being bullied into them by others. That's my general assessment. And look, just more broadly on Labor, I said it before, I'll say it again, apart from a nicer suit, what has changed?
Well, there you go. Right. Well, perhaps it's time to segue to my
Beach. Yes.
my scoop.
Your notable big one. Here it comes.
Yes, notable big one. Anyhow, so as we know, there was a caucus debate within the Labor Party about the stadium and about the position. On Monday, that's correct. And there was...
yes, for context, I think when the TPC report was handed down, it was pretty clear Josh Willie didn't want to make a call himself, for want of a better term, a captain's call. He wanted time to digest it and probably speak to the caucus. Is that a good segue into...
Well, it is kind of a good way, because remember on the Monday before the TPC report came down, they backed it in completely.
Yeah,
and then
because there was speculation from the footy media that Labor was going to change. Speculation on this podcast that Labor was going to change positions. Didn't hear the mea culpa on that one, Brad. But
maybe there was a number of people in Labor that did want to change positions. Keep listening, Alex.
Well, here you go. So look, my understanding of the party room discussion around this matter, I'm not sure if there was a vote, but there were a few voices who spoke in dissent about the blank cheque support to the stadium. And they were...
You got names?
I've got a couple of names. I've got
Names?
4 names, in fact.
4 names who spoke against the stadium.
Correct.
Well,
Are we allowed to guess?
Well, we can...
I've got a...
Here we go.
No,
No, he's going to...
no,
Don't steal his thunder. Let him in.
No.
Okay. All right. Drum roll, please. Dean Winter.
Dean Winter.
Dean Winter's had a bit of a change of a heart.
Dean Winter, the leader of the opposition, who
I think I see where this is going.
Yeah.
But let's see if I...
Shane Broad.
No surprises there,
No
really.
surprises there. Jenna Butler.
So hang on, is this is the Labor right?
That's 3 of the 4 members of the Labor right on my reckoning. The 4th person wasn't Janie Finlay.
Why wasn't it her?
Pardon?
Why did she split?
Well, I assume she's the deputy leader, and so therefore she's loyal to her leader.
Okay.
I would assume that. I haven't spoken to her about this topic. 4th person was somebody who, in my books, has been true to her values all the way through politically. One, Ella Haddad. So there you go.
Right, so...
How good is that male? Because, Jenna Butler, Ella Haddad, I think people would expect them to play devil's advocate and push back. I don't think there's anything unhealthy about that. I'm sure there's split in the Liberal Party room as well.
And look, that's a good thing about a party room is you can have these discussions. I suppose it comes back to the point that Killer was making a little while ago, was you weren't the only person to receive correspondence from people who have a passion for Labor coming and saying what
the F are we doing?
Yeah, what on earth has occurred here? How is this decision made? Yeah, sorry.
But the headline...
To be clear about what you're saying is that there was a strong push within the Labor caucus to not to oppose the stadium, but to abandon the blank cheque. Is that...
What I'm saying is there were some members who spoke against supporting the stadium.
Right.
Full stop.
Full
stop.
Yeah.
Not just the blank
And
cheque.
you're confident Dean Winter was one of those?
I think Dean has reflected. Yes.
I think he's 100% confident in that one.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Which is, well...
There it is.
Well, that could get
Quite
the FontCast into a newspaper article, I reckon.
Just
There you
then, for
go.
those that are watching, the names again: Dean Winter.
Shane Broad, Jenna Butler and Ella Haddad. There you go. All right.
All complaints to
yeah.
Becher, Townshend, level.
188 Collins Street, Hobart. Yes, thank you.
And so just to be clear, because I think people will be very interested in this, to David's point, not just we can't keep giving them a blank cheque. You're saying an argument to say we're going to vote against it in Parliament.
No, an argument to ask the question, well, why should we be supporting the stadium? Why should we be me-tooing the Liberals on this one? Why should we be going in this hard on this issue? Right?
It's interesting the overlap between those names that you've given and my understanding of what happened during the leadership debate as well. And I suspect it points to a post-election issue within Labor that there's, you got 2 factions, again, heading in different directions, a little bit of a lack of unity, and I suspect some unhealed wounds from, 2 election poundings in a row. But
I don't know whether... I think there were people in the left that wanted to stick behind Dean because they saw it as a all for one and one for all sort of thing. I don't think it was... But, no, interesting times.
Well, there you go.
All right.
That is a scoop.
Yeah, that is a scoop. All right. So, moving on. Brad.
Oh, look, just one more thing on the stadium before we do put this to bed for this episode, at least. I'm very conscious of time.
Thank God.
The Greens, Mr. Raze, Ms. Johnston, Mr. Garland, Mr. Mr. DeFalco, and all...
You bought another vowel there, Brad.
I did, didn't I? All these people that went to the election with basically their number one election issue being that they opposed the stadium. When they had the chance between the completion of the count and the formation of the government to make that an issue with whoever formed government, didn't. And now they happily sit by and cheer on the government building a stadium that they say they oppose. I just think... I think some people have voted for those people on the basis they would oppose the stadium are entitled to feel that they have been let down.
Are they cheering it on? Are they?
Well, they're
they're
cheering
doing
the
it.
government on, which is backing it in. This is my point. They're not doing anything.
They're allowing it to occur. They've sat back. They've let absolutely sod all happen.
Grab the votes.
The best we've got is a referral to the PAC, right? To make sure they keep on budget. I mean, firstly, that's what the PAC's already there to do, so you don't need a referral for that.
Anyway, Mr. George got...
We had to have a government, though.
Yeah, I know, but Mr. George got 4 out of 5 things on salmon that he asked for. Did he even ask for anything on the stadium?
Well, he might have done, and Jeremy Rockliff might have made it clear that was off the table. I mean,
it wasn't up for negotiation.
Okay. All right.
You can't horse trade everything.
But you
can. You can if you're a balance of power. You can horse trade on everything. I think that we're going to refloat the Cartilla or something, aren't we?
Anyway.
Brad? All right. Let's move on from the stadium and let's have a look at the upcoming, interim budget. David, I think you've got some news about this in terms of estimates.
I'm excited. I mean,
You're excited.
We hear enough. I love budgets. I really do. And I was away for what I'm now describing as the alternate budget. We've had governments calling for years for Labor to hand one down, and this year they've set the example, handed down their own alternate budget, scrubbed from the internet, no trace.
Phantom budget.
I have a hard copy. I should get it autographed. It's going to be worth something on eBay.
If they replayed the news story about it, it'd go all pixelated.
Okay,
yes.
Former colleague Mr. Nowlan used to say it's the alternate budget, not the alternative budget, because the alternative budget would be every second year.
Right, okay.
I think I got that right.
Bow to his superior wisdom on this matter. Yeah, we've got a busy little time coming up because I'm sort of looking at the parliamentary calendar and the stadium motion's down, I think, for the week of the 4th. The budget's on the 6th, and we're talking about November here, so because we've got a little break coming up. And then we have a normal sitting week, and then we have the 4 days of estimates hearings, which are the 17th, 18th, 19th and 20th of November. And then we've got a week of GBEs on was it 24th, 25th, 26th,
So when does the upper house sit to pass the budget?
I would imagine there'll be that week of the 11th, 12th, 13th.
So they're going to be...
absolutely, November's going to be absolutely jam-packed.
So the upper house is going to be, notwithstanding our absolutely 100% spot-on stadium scoreboard, they're going to be considering the budget and the $1.5 billion stadium at the same time.
Preparing for estimates.
On Melbourne Cup Day.
GBEs.
On Melbourne Cup Day.
Oh, it is too. Yeah. So it'd be a fun time.
Yeah.
Podcast, probably 3 a week.
Yeah. So on the budget, Beach, and we've sort of spoken about this already, but I mean, what I'm hearing is that Eric Betts, the new treasurer, is working very hard, not so much to cut spending in the interim budget, but to stop the insertion of new spending. Even election promises, I'm told, are being very carefully considered as to whether they should be implemented or whether they should be implemented in part. For example, maybe less money might be given to something that was promised a certain amount of money. Now, I would make 2 points about that. Firstly, it is very, very bad to break election promises straight after an election. It's my number one rule. 1.1 rule in politics is you do not break election promises. You do everything you can to keep them, or to try to keep them. Like, as soon as you break your election promises, you break that bond of trust with the electorate, and you never get it back. So it concerns me greatly that they're looking at doing that. But the second point is, as David and you said, why are we doing this and spending $1.5 billion on a stadium? So we're going to scrimp and scrape here, but we're going to spend on interstate lawyers and, interstate this and interstate that for this stadium down here.
Well, yeah, that line in the TPC report saying that, we're going to have to rustle up another $50 million a year to pay for interest. That's on the previous cost. Add another 20% to that. Thanks, And it's the same minister too. Eric's the minister for the stadium and the minister for the budget. It's just the push-pull. It's absurd. We've ruled out.
I'm here to argue how wonderful an AFL team and how important good infrastructure is. I'm not here to argue against that. You make such a strong point. it's the most glaring contradiction, isn't it?
Well, there's an interesting corner that we're painting into too, because I think in Parliament this week we've ruled out both raising taxes or cutting services. So I'm not
hence why Eric's looking at election.
not real good with maths, but
I can imagine Eric running a fine-tooth comb over election commitments. So maybe we'll have, like, you get the gate, but you don't get the personalised plaque to go with it. Maybe that could be the compromise.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, but it is, as I say, you never recover from breaking election promises. I remember, again, I was talking about the good old days, but the 2011 budget where Labor slashed and burned and smashed all their election promises from the 2010 election, including new helicopters and all sorts of stuff. You just don't come back from that.
Well, I mean, I still come back to my point, well, it's just madness. The reality is they are going to increase taxes. They're going to increase taxes on business. That's why the TCCI has taken such a strong line on this issue, because it's the low-hanging fruit they're going to go for, in my view.
And as you mentioned earlier, Beach, the independents, my new best friend Peter George, budget's rooted. We need to fix the budget. By the way, please serve Malay Cartel to have some more money.
Yeah. So, we can't have it both ways. And it gets back to the discussion you and I had last time, AJ. At the end of the day, somebody's got to make a decision. Somebody's got to do something about the budget. And who knows what it is. On the kind of topic of, just to sort of round out the issue.
things we can or can't afford.
Well, things we can or can't afford. So you may have missed it, but several months ago, the Tasmanian Industrial Commission handed down a 22% pay rise, or about $30,000 to the state's politicians. So that would increase their base pay to approximately $170,000 a year, still the lowest in country, mind you. Yesterday, Premier Rockcliffe suffered his first parliamentary loss for the new term when his attempt to have this disallowed was defeated in the upper house 10 votes to 4.
I think it might have also been the first vote in the lower house that Labor got more than 10 votes too.
Yeah. So history was made at so many levels. Of note, it wasn't just the independents who opposed it, but it was also the Labor Party. Alex, what was the right or wrong call? Was that right or wrong call by Labor?
Well, my initial reaction was I was sort of surprised that Labor would give the Premier such an easy political hit, and you saw it rolled out last night. Labor's, taking the 22% pay rise. But I dwelled on it overnight, and I think that Labor did the right thing. Yep. I think this issue has become too silly. Keep delaying it. The figure's going to get bigger. Something's got to give eventually. The backbenchers don't get paid very much in the scheme of things. It's a funny old situation where you've got an advisor sitting next to an elected member of Parliament earning significantly more. Make of that what you will. Maybe advisors should get paid less. I don't know. But I think Labor did the right thing. I think, as we touched on before, the Premier's copped this now from the upper house at a time when he desperately needs the upper house's support on a few things. You don't think it's going to affect the stadium. You're probably going to be right about that. But the inverse of that is, at least they'll see Labor as, doing the right thing, copping a little bit of political heat in the very short term, but it'll die down. So I think Labor did the right thing. Let's get this out of the way. It is crazy that you can veto, and the Premier's obviously said he's going to hand back his pay rise. I'm not sure how many troops will fall in behind him on that one. How many
of his loyal followers within the
Liberal
Party?
How could you expect a backbencher to? The Premier gets a substantial wage. Still probably not as much.
125% loading.
Yep.
It's still probably not as much as you could argue a Premier of a state should get. But it's easier for him to say no than it would be for a backbencher who that money would make difference to in these, in these times. So.
Yep.
No, good on Labor. It would have been easy to fall in behind the government on this one, but I think they've done the right thing.
Killer.
This has been bubbling away for a long time. It's been 7 years since our MPs had a pay rise. The system for determining pays has been messed around with, was given to the TIC, and then the TIC spent, I think they've done three inquiries, 2017, 2019, 2025, if I'm even remotely close. The determination was always coming. The problem has compounded as, things with 2s and 3% suddenly add up. I mean, if you look at it, it's probably slightly less than 3% a year, and then the decision to again intervene. So having created a process that handed this difficult and unpalatable decision to the TIC to determine, the Premier then intervened and said, no, I'll decide, or, Parliament will decide whether to give ourselves pay rise. Put people in a difficult position, made a lot of people in the upper house very angry that they had to, that they and, now by extension Labor are taking the blame for something that was never going to be popular with the public. I think former Mercury editor Matt Dighton used to describe me as the office Bolshevik, but I think that folk deserve their pay to keep track with inflation. I'm not sure, I'm reading from the pages of Das Kapital here, but politicians work hard for the most part. It's a difficult and demanding job. If the salary has been set, they have a right to have that not eroded by inflation. Very quickly, Ruth Forrest gave a speech on the adjournment last night, which I highly recommend for those with access to the video feed, in which she described the Premier as childish, disrespectful, dishonest, disappointing. His actions, not those of a respected parliamentarian and not those of a good bloke.
Not those of a good bloke.
That reflected the mood of some in the upper house who, felt that it fell to them to take the blame for a difficult decision that should never have been before the Parliament. It should have been left to the TIC. And as it stands, the TIC will next year make a similar determination. I reckon they'll get 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
And it won't be on the front page of the Mercury the next day because it's as routine as every other workplace getting an inflation-related rise.
Brad?
It was absolutely the right decision by the Labor Party and by the LegCo. Completely expected by the LegCo because, what's that saying about Paul Keating, treasurers and buckets of money? LegCos, and it's the same, I think. They did call out it was cheap politicking by the Premier and whoever his closest advisors were in the PLP of the Cabinet suggested he do it. I don't think it was a good idea. There hasn't been a poly pay increase since 2018, as David said, and do need to be paid properly. If not, mostly all we'll get in Parliament is, as we saw from the last election, ex-federal MPs desperate for a job, or retirees who don't need the money.
Yeah.
That's
or wealthy, wealthy individuals who don't have.
If you look at the intake from the last election, that was pretty much what it was.
No, if you're a high flyer in your career, why would you take a $100,000 pay cut to, someone said to me yesterday, get abused on social media every night? That's not very enticing.
Exactly.
You pay a bit more, maybe the balance shifts a little bit.
And conversely, if you're a single mum or someone on a fixed income or, otherwise, constrained, why would you, there's a lot of risks here. There's no redundancy, the work's insecure.
Don't I know it?
And you've got to spend tens of thousands on
the hourly rate. I don't think works out real great.
And look, thanks to loyal listener Shannon, I did refresh my memory on what happened. David, you alluded to. So, this has been a vexed issue of governments for a long time since the nexus with the federal parliament was split. I think is in the early 2000s or mid 2000s. And federal parliament took a big pay increase, and it was regarded at the state level as being too much. So the automatic link between the two was broken.
Yep.
Since then, it was always a problem every time. So we designed this new system in the mid-teens under Will, which I thought was really clever. Which was that we would handball it to the TIC to make the independent decision. And what would happen is every time the opposition would say, we're going to legislate to change it. So we said, we won't do that. We'll put in a disallowance mechanism so it can be disallowed, but we'll put it in both houses. It needs to pass both houses because we do know that 9 times out of 10, the LegCo will defeat the disallowance, so the pay increase will go through. And so, by and large, the system works.
Well, it was temporarily appropriate at that time because that was a time at which the public sector was being given, take it or leave it, 2% wage increases as part of, a general austerity push. So it fitted with the times, but it didn't age well, and we end up with this ridiculous situation where of what happened yesterday.
One last thing.
Does Beach agree with us on this?
Oh, absolutely.
I was just checking because I think the government media unit and the Premier's office probably think yesterday went very well for them. You know, Labor signing up for a 22% pay rise. And I think they'll listen to the four of us agreeing and think that, that's probably, it's good to be
out
on
of
the
touch.
side.
Yeah.
But it's interesting we all agree.
Look, it's a thankless job being an elected member. There needs to be a mechanism for which elected members can get a pay rise.
Elected member of the TCCI and
22% pay rise in the works.
The time he puts in for the minimal stipend he gets.
Our comments section is a really interesting litmus test, and I dived in there yesterday and had a look through, and you would expect for a newspaper audience this would all run one way, and I regard our readers as a fairly sophisticated, well-informed, nuanced bunch, and I reckon it was about 50-50. So there was a lot more support for this where you thought there might not be. I think it was well argued by a few people in the upper house. I'm not sure how many were watching the feed, but I haven't looked in the comment sections this morning. It might have swung, but I don't think the community thinks that having our parliamentarians not paid well is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean the challenge from the government's point of view is they've got to negotiate some public service pay deals, and that's no doubt weighing on them in terms of the decision and what's likely to happen during those negotiations, and I understand that. But fundamentally, we need well-paid elected members to represent us. We need the best we can get. And I think if we don't move their pay, we're not going to attract good people who just want to have a crack and have a go. And we do end up with a different kind of politician that, those that can afford it. So,
for the long termers, absolutely. For those who just turned up, it's a nice little bonus.
Yeah, it's a nice little bonus. Well, good.
Couple of months.
Good on them.
22% whack.
Anyhow.
One final thing from me, Beach. I'm not going to stop banging on about this till the member for absolutely joins the Liberal Party like she should. So it was noted and pointed out to me yesterday that Tanya Rattray, the independent, in inverted commas, member of the upper house, who is now the leader of the government in the upper house, did split from the government on this issue and vote against the disallowance motion. She did say she would split from the government on matters that were important and dear to her heart, so there you go.
Why does it matter if she stays as an independent?
Well, let me finish. I hold the view... Well, look, she gets the same loading as a minister, as the leader of the government of the upper house, so she gets a 70% loading on her pay.
But that's for doing the work, not voting.
She gets the limo. She gets a driver all the way up to Scottsdale and back. It's lovely. But she's not a member of the Liberal PLP, doesn't pay the parliamentary levy that all members of the Liberal PLP pay to the party that got them, to which they owe their career and to which got them into government. So yet Ms Rattray is enjoying all the perks and benefits of the highest levels of government, but doesn't contribute to the team that got her there. So I would just say to the members of the Liberal Party, who will no doubt will be strongly encouraged, shall we say, by the Premier and his supporters to voluntarily also accept only a 3% pay increase rather than the 22%, which is now law. Tell the Premier that you will accept the 3% pay increase when Ms Rattray joins the party and does the same.
I don't see it that way. I don't see it as such a big deal. I mean, the Speaker in the last Parliament wasn't a member of the government, and they get a driver. I mean, it's a position in Parliament that Tanya Rattray has assumed. I don't think there's a caveat that you've now got to join
the Speaker gets a job virtue of the Parliament, not virtue of the government.
Yeah, and that's
not the same.
I mean, Craig Farrell is the President of the Legislative Council, which is the equivalent to the Speaker. Tanya is the leader for government.
I know it's not voted on, but it's still an appointed position. I just don't see it as such a big deal. But
well, you're not a member of the Liberal Party, but
I think it'd be a bigger issue. I can't muster a strong feeling on this. So if I was a member of the Liberal Party, I might.
Yeah. I think that's what Brad's challenging.
What I'm saying is, if you're going to enjoy the benefits of the team that got you there, you should be contributing something back, and she's not doing that at this point. In fact, she's doing the opposite.
You don't think she's contributing? I mean, why is she there?
No.
Surely conferring a benefit on the government in general,
What is
maybe
it?
not
Let me know.
specifically.
Let me know what it is.
All right.
All right. Well, a reasonable call, Brad. And on that bombshell, I think it's
Well,
time.
I don't think so. I did have a bombshell.
Did you?
I had
Go
an
on.
exclusive ready to go. Was written in the script last night,
Oh,
ready to roll out
yes.
this morning.
Yeah.
Then I opened up Instagram, and there's the Premier's tat. Oh, I was
Ah,
ready to
the
roll
tat,
it
yeah.
first thing this morning.
Ready to get it
FontCast
out.
exclusive.
Another FontCast exclusive.
Never sit on shit, boys and girls.
Yeah,
Never
that's
sit on
it.
shit.
FontCast is brought to you by Enterprise Market and Research Services, Tasmania's leading research provider. Thank you, Brad.
Great as always.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Beach. Geelong by 20 and Jeremy Cameron will win the Norm Smith.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, David.
It's been great.
Good to hear. And thank you especially to Sam. Don't forget, you can now catch us on our YouTube channel, FontCast. FontCast is produced and directed by Sam Eichen for Eichen Media. Until next time, carry on.